A 1905 wedding photo looks innocent until you see him lurking in the background. William Whitmore stands among the guests, but official records prove he died 2 years earlier in a lab explosion. How does a dead man attend his sister's wedding without anyone questioning his presence? A wedding photo from 1905 looks normal, but in the background, historians are shocked. Dr. Sarah Mitchell's hands shook as she held the old brown photograph under her magnifying glass. The Carnegie Library in Pittsburgh had given boxes of old photos to her university. This wedding picture from 1905 had caught her eye. The bride looked beautiful in her white lace dress. She stood next to her groom in his black suit. Wedding guests surrounded them on the steps of what looked like a Methodist church. Everyone was frozen in that happy moment from over 100 years ago, but something in the background made Sarah gasp. Behind the wedding party, partly hidden by the church's stone walls, stood a person who looked strangely familiar. This person wore clothes from that time period, but something about the way they stood didn't quite fit with the other wedding guests. Sarah made the magnifying glass bigger and leaned closer. The photo was very clear for something that old. Her heart beat faster as she looked at the person's face more carefully. The face had sharp features that stuck out. Something about it bothered her memory. She had seen this face before, but not where she would expect. This wasn't just an unusual wedding photo. It might be proof of something much more interesting than a simple family celebration. Sarah's friend, Professor James Hamilton, came to her office right after she called her. He knew a lot about early 1900s American photos. He was an expert on Pittsburgh's important families from that time. His knowledge would help figure out who this mystery person was. "Look at this person here." Sarah pointed to the figure in the background. "Something about their face seems familiar, but I can't remember where I've seen it before." James looked at the photo through the magnifying glass. His face showed more confusion as he studied it. "The photo quality is amazing for 1905, but that's not what's bothering me." He stopped and adjusted the lens to see closer. "This face, I know I've seen it somewhere before." After looking for several minutes, James suddenly stood up straight. His face turned pale. "Sarah, I need to check something right now." He rushed to his filing cabinet and pulled out a folder of old photos from Pittsburgh's wealthy families. "Here," he said, placing another photo next to the wedding picture. "This is a formal portrait of the Whitmore family from 1898. He pointed to a young man in the family group. "That's William Whitmore, son of steel magnate Robert Whitmore." Sarah compared the two faces and felt her breath stop. They looked exactly the same. They were looking at the same person 7 years apart. Sarah wanted to solve the mystery. She started looking into William Whitmore's life and death records. The Pittsburgh City Archives had lots of information about the important Whitmore family. This included birth certificates, marriage records, and obituaries from the early 1900s. What she found made chills run down her spine. According to official records, William Whitmore had died in a lab accident on March 15, 1903. That was more than 2 years before the wedding photo was taken. The Pittsburgh Gazette had written about his death. They described the tragic explosion in his private lab that killed the brilliant young inventor and photographer. Sarah checked the wedding date with family records. The ceremony was between Margaret Whitmore and Thomas Anderson on June 15, 1905. Margaret was William's sister. According to all the paperwork, he had been dead for over 2 years when this photo was taken. She spent hours looking at the death certificate, coroner's report, and newspaper stories. Every official document said the same thing. William Whitmore had died in 1903 from injuries in a chemical explosion in his lab. His funeral had many people from important Pittsburgh families. Yet here he was, clearly visible in a photo from 1905 at his sister's wedding. Either the records were wrong or something amazing had happened that let a dead man appear at a family celebration 2 years after his burial. Sarah's investigation led her to contact living family members of the Whitmores. Through family tree research, she found Jennifer Whitmore Chen. She was Margaret's great-great-granddaughter living in Philadelphia. Jennifer was a retired librarian who had kept lots of family records and photos. "I've never seen this particular photo before," Jennifer said during their video call. She studied the image Sarah had emailed her. "But it's definitely my great-great-grandmother's wedding. I recognized several family members." However, when Sarah pointed out William in the background, Jennifer's reaction was immediate and startling. "That's impossible," Jennifer whispered. "Uncle William died before I was born, but I've seen enough family photos to recognize him right away. But he couldn't have been at this wedding. He was already dead." Jennifer left the screen and came back with a family Bible and several photo albums. "There's something I need to check," she said, flipping through the pages of family records. "My great-great-grandmother kept very detailed records. There are some entries that never made sense to me." After several minutes, Jennifer found what she was looking for. "Here," she said, pointing to a handwritten entry dated June 1905. Great-grandmother wrote, "William was there, though we cannot speak of it. Some secrets must remain buried with the dead." Jennifer's voice dropped to a whisper. There are several mysterious references like this in her personal writings. I always thought they were just expressions of sadness, but now I'm wondering if there was something more. With new questions about William's death, Sarah decided to investigate the lab accident more carefully. She found out that William's lab had been in the basement of the Whitmore family mansion on 5th Avenue. The mansion was torn down to make room for a modern office building. The insurance records from 1903 gave detailed information about the explosion. The fire chief's report described finding lots of chemical damage and personal items that showed Mr. Whitmore was there when the accident happened. However, one detail caught Sarah's attention. The report mentioned that the victim's remains were badly damaged by chemical burns. This made positive identification very hard. Sarah found the coroner's report buried in city archives. Dr. Marcus Henley had done the examination. He had noted several unusual things about the case. The body had been badly burned and changed, but Dr. Henley had identified it as William Whitmore based on general physical features, personal items found at the scene, and no other explanation for human remains in Mr. Whitmore's private lab. More interesting, Sarah discovered that Dr. Henley had added a private note to his file. "While I have no doubt that a death occurred in this laboratory, I cannot make a positive identification with complete certainty. The family has requested immediate burial, which I have approved based on the traumatic nature of the remains." The medical examiner had doubts about the identification, but had listened to the family's wishes for a quick burial. Sarah's investigation found more problems with the official story of William's death. She discovered that in the weeks after the supposed accident, several witnesses had reported seeing a man who looked like William in various places around Pittsburgh. A hotel clerk had reported a guest who signed the register as W. Morrison, but looked a lot like William Whitmore. A train conductor remembered selling a ticket to Chicago to a man who looked remarkably like the supposedly dead inventor. Most interesting, a photographer in Allegheny had mentioned a customer who had bought expensive camera equipment just days after William's funeral. Sarah realized that the evidence pointed toward a shocking possibility. William Whitmore hadn't died in the lab accident. Someone else had died in his place. William had used the tragedy as a chance to disappear from his old life. But why would a wealthy young man from an important family choose to fake his own death? Sarah's research into William's personal life showed possible reasons. Court records showed that William had been facing a big lawsuit from investors. They claimed he had cheated them in a failed business deal. Also, there were signs that he had been involved in a scandalous affair with a married woman. This threatened his family's reputation. Faking his death would have let William escape both legal troubles and social disgrace, while protecting his family from further scandal. Sarah's investigation into the mysterious hotel guest W. Morrison led to a breakthrough. She discovered that William Morrison was a real person. He was a traveling photographer who had died in a railway accident in Ohio just 2 days before William Whitmore's supposed lab explosion. Cross-referencing newspaper reports from both Pittsburgh and Ohio, Sarah found that Morrison had been carrying identification papers and photography equipment when he died. His body had been badly damaged in the train accident, making identification difficult. Sarah realized that William Whitmore had somehow gotten Morrison's identity papers. He used them to establish a new life after faking his own death. The timing was too convenient to be a coincidence. William had likely learned of Morrison's death and seen a chance to take on a new identity. Further investigation showed that W. Morrison had opened a bank account in Chicago shortly after William's supposed death. He deposited a large sum of money that matched the amount William had taken from his Pittsburgh accounts in the weeks before the lab accident. The evidence suggested that William had carefully planned his disappearance. He used Morrison's death as cover for his escape. He had arranged for someone else's body to be found in his lab, possibly Morrison himself. Then he had taken on the dead photographer's identity to start a new life in Chicago. This explained his presence at his sister's wedding. He had returned to Pittsburgh under his fake identity to attend the ceremony. He knew that his family would recognize him, but understood that they would never reveal his secret. Sarah arranged to meet Jennifer Whitmore in person. She brought all the evidence she had found about William's fake death and assumed identity. Jennifer listened to the full story in stunned silence. Then she admitted that Sarah's discoveries finally explained decades of family mysteries. There were always whispers, Jennifer confessed. Stories passed down through generations about Uncle William appearing at family events after his supposed death. My grandmother used to tell stories about seeing him at her own wedding in 1923, but the family always dismissed these as grief-induced fantasies. Jennifer got a locked wooden box from her closet. It was a family heirloom that had been passed down through generations of Whitmore women. Inside were letters, photographs, and documents that had never been shared with the public or given to any historical society. My great-grandmother left instructions that this box should only be opened if someone discovered the truth about William, Jennifer explained. She wrote that the family had agreed to protect his secret forever, but if his deception was ever uncovered, the full story should be told. The box contained letters between William and various family members written under his assumed name of William Morrison. The letters showed that he had kept in contact with his family throughout his assumed death. He attended weddings, funerals, and other important family events while living under his false identity. One letter dated 1920 read, "My dear sister Margaret, I know my presence at family gatherings causes you distress, but I cannot bear to miss these precious moments. I promise that I will never endanger the family by revealing myself to outsiders." The documents in Jennifer's family box showed the full scope of William's deception and the family's help in protecting his secret. William had not only assumed Morrison's identity, but had built an entire new life as a traveling photographer. Ironically, he used the skills that had made him prominent in Pittsburgh society. Under his assumed name, William Morrison had become a successful commercial photographer. He traveled throughout the Midwest and documented America's growing industrial cities. His work had been published in national magazines. He had even photographed several prominent political figures, all while maintaining his secret identity. The family had helped him maintain this deception for decades. They had given him financial support when needed. They kept him informed about family events. Most importantly, they never revealed his true identity to anyone outside the immediate family circle. Margaret's personal diary, included in the family collection, revealed the emotional toll of maintaining this secret. William looked so happy at my wedding, but I could see the sadness in his eyes. He has sacrificed everything, his name, his inheritance, his place in society, to protect our family from scandal. I pray that someday he will be able to reclaim his true identity. The wedding photograph had captured one of William's secret family visits. It was a moment when love had overcome caution. He had positioned himself where he could be seen by the camera. It was both evidence of his continued existence and proof of the unbreakable bonds of family loyalty that had protected his secret for over a century. Sarah faced a big ethical decision about what to do with her discovery. She had proof that William Whitmore had faked his death and lived for decades under an assumed identity. He had deceived not only the public but also official government records. After After lots of discussions with Jennifer and other family descendants, Sarah chose to handle the revelation with sensitivity to both historical truth and family privacy. She published her findings as an academic paper. It focused on the broader phenomenon of identity fraud in early 20th century America. She used William's case as an example while protecting specific family details. The wedding photograph was donated to the Pennsylvania Historical Society with a full explanation of its significance. William's assumed identity as William Morrison and his successful career as a photographer were documented and added to the historical record. This finally gave him credit for decades of important photographic work. Jennifer worked with the family to establish a small scholarship fund in William's true name. It supports students studying photography and art history. Uncle William spent his life hiding from his mistakes, she explained. But his talent and his love for his family deserve to be remembered and celebrated. The photograph now serves as a reminder that sometimes the most extraordinary family stories are hidden in plain sight. They wait for the right person to notice the details that everyone else had overlooked. William Whitmore's secret had been preserved for over a century through the love and loyalty of a family. They understood that protecting someone you care about sometimes requires making difficult choices. Sarah's discovery had revealed not just a photographic mystery, but a deeply human story. It was about redemption, sacrifice, and the enduring power of family bonds that transcend even death and deception.